we have to be HOT. It's an acronym. Honest, open, and transparent.
Ooh, that's good. Hot.
We have to be hot.
Okay.
We have to be honest. It's like, who are we? Like, honest with ourselves about the situation. Honest with our kids about the situation.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to tell your kid everything. I'm saying be honest with them. If they ask and they're old enough to understand it, tell them, because they're asking out of curiosity.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We're Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BKF Podcast. We're so excited that you're here with us this week. Guys, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe to on Audible, wherever you listen to. Like, share, comment. We want to get your feedback. I'm excited because if you listened to last week's episode, you heard that Scott and I would be interviewing Sidney, who is one of our Blended Kingdom Teens ambassadors. And so Sidney does our Blended Kingdom Teens podcast along with Jersey, and she is from a blended family. I'm going to let her share a little bit about herself, but we're excited to have her because we want to really hear from you, Sidney, about coming from a teen and a young adult's perspective of healthy and unhealthy co-parenting,
Right.
because kids get caught in the middle of this. But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about you. You're in college, like all the cool things you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Hey guys, my name is Sidney Chaplin. I am a freshman at Abilene Christian University. I just finished my freshman year, actually. I'm youth and family ministry, so this is like right up my alley. So I come from a blended family. My dad is remarried. My parents got divorced when I was like 12 years old. I'm 18 now. I have five step siblings on, there's so many, 5 step siblings on Courtney's side. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, and we were a part of that journey with you and your dad. When your parents got divorced, and his journey with Courtney and getting married,
Right.
and seeing how your family has evolved, and we're so excited. Sidney has poured so much into the Blended Kingdom Teens, and it's such a needed resource for teens and blended families and kids, because back in my days when I was your age, like there's nothing for kids. There was no support or encouragement or really anything for blended families. But Sidney, we've been on this kind of series journey of co-parenting because it's one of those things that it's one of those topics in blended families that it's just one of the hard things that all blended families deal with. Now, there are blended families that have great co-parenting relationships, but I would say 90% of them have a lot of difficulty.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, really hearing from you, a kiddo that has, gone through it has experienced it. You've experienced the good co-parenting and you've experienced the bad.
Yeah.
So we just want to hear from you, talk about what are some of the things that co-parents can do that are healthy? What are some of the toxic things that you've experienced? And then and how have each of those affected you? The positive things, how have those things affected you positively? And then how did it affect you negatively?
Right. First, I would do a shameless plug for BKT. Go check it out. It's awesome. I love doing that for you guys. It's such a resource for teens because, it's so easy to just go on with life and not have anybody relate to you, but we're there to relate to you guys.
Yeah.
So absolutely, if you have a teen, go give them the link to that because it is so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I've made a list.
You've made a list. I like it.
Made the list. Okay, so what do you want to start with? The healthy or toxic?
Yeah, you can start with healthy co-parenting.
Okay.
What from your perspective, what as a kid, what is healthy to you? What does that look like?
I'm going to preface this. I did not become, a follower of Christ until I was 16 years old. My parents had been divorced for about 4 years at that point. So this is coming from somebody who did find Christ later in life. First thing on the list is having eyes for Christ in that situation. Love your situation the way God does. Because at the end of the day, you're all still his children, and he still loves each and every one of you the exact same, even though your situation that you have been put in is not ideal.
Yeah.
So,
man, there is so much wisdom in that right there. That is so good. We talked about having a perspective and having what is the first thing that you can do to be healthy? And it's your relationship with Christ.
Right.
And when we can exhibit Christ-like character, regardless of what the other person does, what that does to us and what that does to your children. And so like dive into that just a little bit more. Like when you've seen either your dad or your mom or either one of your step parents like exhibit that behavior, like how has that affected you? What has that shown you?
So we actually talked about this on a BKT podcast about praying that God would put a step parent in your parent's life. And it really just showed that. When they have like a heart on fire for God, like it just makes the whole relationship so much better between not only your parents, but between you and that step parent, because it's like an influence. It's like you have another person pouring into you so that then you can later go pour into somebody else and maybe even them eventually.
That's good. Have you seen how like either your parent or step parent, like their Christ-like behavior has positively influenced the other co-parent?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This isn't specifically my case, but it's kind of Jersey's case. Her dad got remarried before her mom did, and they always grew up in church and whatnot, but kind of just having that godly relationship and whatnot, kind of just like, okay, we're still going to do that. We're still going to keep our kids in the church and doing all that.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's good. What else would you say as far as a healthy co-parent?
Communicate. It's a
big one.
Communicate. 3 exclamation points. Talk about it. And I know there's some situations where the parents don't talk about anything. They're like, I'm not doing this. They're out of my life for a reason. If you're going to talk about one thing, let it be your kids, because, well, you did make those kids together. So like at the baseline, if nothing else, talk about your kids. Talk about what you're going to teach them, how you're going to get them through this season. Talk about it. And if that's all you talk about is your kids, that's enough. Yeah. You only need to talk about them because they're, at this point, one of the main things that actually connect you to as people.
Yeah. So, man, there is so much. You're spitting fire today. I mean, and that, like, honestly, I mean, that's convicted me, like, as you were saying, like, because I know there's been seasons when, especially when there's strife between co-parents, like, you don't want to communicate because you're like, oh, I don't want anything to go, like, I don't want anything to be chaotic or there to be like any, confrontation. So like you just don't say anything. But at the end of the day, it's like you can set aside your differences. And like you just said, communicate about the kids, communicate about the thing that you both love. And it's hard like when you have differences and like you don't think that they should be doing this and they do or whatever, but like still having a healthy line of communication of talking about what's going on in school or what's going on in their sports and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The next thing, encourage your child to have a relationship with their step parent and their step siblings.
That's so good.
That's a big one.
We literally just talked about that on the previous episode about encouraging your children's relationship with the other parent. Okay, keep going. Sorry to interrupt you, but that is on point.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things because in my case, my mom did not do a good job at that. I actually did not like my stepmom when I met her because I had heard all this stuff about her from my mom. And I'm just like, what? Yeah. And so encourage your kid to have a relationship because that person's going to be in their life, like especially if they're getting married. Yeah. Like they're going to be in their life, at least encourage them to have that relationship because they're never going to replace you as mom or dad, but they will be there as a friend for your kid. So
that's good. Yeah. Well, what would you say to this? So you said your mom, kind of didn't encourage that relationship or spoke negatively about it. Like as you grew and got older and got to know your stepmom, like did you come to realize like on your own that, hey, this isn't who she is that I was told? Like kind of share a little bit about that if you don't mind, Sidney.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was nowhere accurate. Yeah. I was like some things, it was just mostly from the divorce and it was like divorce hurt that my mom was feeling. Yeah. And so like basically she just spoke all this bad stuff about her and I was like, she's really nice. And like I love my stepmom. She's like so sweet. Yeah. And she's just like striving for God each day and she brings my dad closer when he falls short. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And so it's probably just seeing where the truth lies in the matter of it and understand that people do say stuff because they're hurt. Yeah. And it's just coming out because they have to get it out. Yeah. And it may not be directed directly at that. Yeah. It might be something else that's been like basically just building up inside of them. And so it may not be specifically to that. Yeah. But they just have to get it out. Yeah. And so they're going to say it and just figure out and understand where the truth actually lies, because that's what you put your trust in.
That's
like,
awesome.
because I knew she was a good person.
Yeah.
Once I got to know her, obviously.
Yeah.
I knew she was a good person.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, what my mom was saying wasn't true.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. So to the parent right now who their co-parent is bashing them or bashing their spouse, and they're saying all these bad things. We get that so much. It's the parent is talking negatively about the other parent, and they're trying to manipulate that relationship with the child. People use the term parent alienation, things like that. What encouragement would you give to that parent? You just said that, like, as you got to know your stepmom and as you got older, like, you were like, it was so far from the truth of who she was. Like, for those parents that are listening right now and struggling in that because they have another parent, their co-parent is talking negatively about them to their child, what do you want to say to encourage them?
Probably to have a conversation with their kid. Be like, listen, I know that you're hearing this over here, and I'm telling you this over here. Like, be honest with me, because at the end of the day, it's about the kids. It's like, be honest with me. How do you feel about this topic? How do you feel about your stepmom, about your step-siblings? Like, how do you feel about this? Because if they're old enough to fully understand that, they're going to tell you the truth. Yeah. They'll be like, well, I think this, and this. And well, like, you can tell if it's words from the other parent's mouth. And you'd be like, no, like, what do you feel? Like, it's okay to feel this certain way about it. Like, what do you feel about it? Yeah. Because then you're going to get their truth about the situation. Be like, well, I see this. It's like, okay, if you don't like what they see, you're like, oh, well, I'm sorry. Let's fix it. Yeah. And so that's probably the biggest advice is, like, talk to your kid. Have a sit down with them, because they're going to be honest.
Yeah. Kids are very honest. And as you grow and you mature in your relationships within your blended family, you get that emotional intelligence, and you can figure things out for yourself, right? You can figure out, like, when your parents have been manipulative, or, when they've, done things, you're like, that doesn't add up. That doesn't line up with, their actions or their words. And that's why we always talk about, like, being committed to, like, your good character, like, regardless of what your co-parent does, like, and, you may go the first 18 years and it's just like attack after attack after attack. But then it's like, as the kids grow older, they can look back and be like, you know what? This parent was consistent in their action and their words. They never tore the other parent down. They always promoted a good relationship. They did all of these things, and they're going to see the fruit,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have one more for the
Go for it.
This is actually a reference from my social work teacher from this year. We have to be HOT. It's an acronym. Honest, open, and transparent.
Ooh, that's good. Hot.
We have to be hot. And he would say that every single day in class, and it kind of got weirder as the semester went on, but it's okay, because I took it from his class. Yeah. We have to be hot. Okay. We have to be honest. It's like, who are we? Like, honest with ourselves about the situation. Yeah. Honest with our kids about the situation. Yeah. I'm not saying you have to tell your kid everything. I'm saying be honest with them. If they ask and they're old enough to understand it, tell them, because they're asking out of curiosity. Be open with them. Same thing. Be open with them. Don't hide things from them. If you're, like, dating and they're, like, old enough to understand that and to see the signs of it, I promise you that kid's picking up on it. Like, be open with them. Be like, hey, yeah, I am kind of starting to put myself back out there. Yeah. How do you feel about that? It's always open for conversation and transparent. They're basically all in the same line. Yeah. Be transparent with your kid. Don't hide things from your kid. Yeah. Because they're going to find out. That's good. I would rather it come from the parent's mouth and not somebody else's. Yeah. Because then it's not good. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I have for my healthy co-parenting.
No, I think that's good. And I love the HOT acronym, because I think so many of us, like, in blended families, we're so afraid to say and do something in fear that the other co-parent is going to find out, or our kid's going to misinterpret it, and it's going to cause a situation, or you're afraid that they're going to go share this information that you don't want the other co-parent to know. And so just being able to be vulnerable and transparent, and like you said, age appropriate, yes. Right, yeah. But having that open line of communication and having that relationship with your children, where you're providing a safe environment, emotionally, not just physically, but spiritually, mentally, where they can come to you with anything if they have questions, and be like, you know what, you may not like the answer to this, but this is what it is, and being honest in that, being honest of your own faults, like holding yourself accountable for the actions and the things that you've done wrong. I remember Michael and I had a conversation about, his divorce with his father, and I was like, like, hey, this is where I was wrong. You know, these were things that I did as a single mom that I messed up. You know, I was very honest with him about the things that I had done and asked for his forgiveness. And I think your children will respect you so much with that, but it will also make them feel safe. And it shows them that, hey, like, you're not perfect. I don't have to be perfect. It shows you what mercy looks like, what forgiveness looks like, what Christ looks like, you know? And so I love that HOT acronym. I'm going to use that from now on. Be hot.
Just gotta be hot.
Co-parents, be hot.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I know I said we're running out of time, so we're going to actually save the toxic, not good parenting, co-parenting.
The nitty and gritty.
The nitty and gritty. So join us next week, guys, because we're about out of time for this week. So join us next week, and Sid's going to jump into those traits that she talked about from a teen, young adult's perspective. So Sid, thanks for being on this episode. We're going to get with you guys again next week for that. So stay tuned and be sure to, again, you guys, subscribe, like, share, comment, send us your feedback. We can't wait to hear from you, and we'll see you next week. Be blessed in all that you do.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.